We are now going to move on and read pages 7 to 13, the rest of the book. Okay, guys? So here is a picture. We just learned that in the city of Pisa, Galileo was born, and it says he was born with stars in his eyes. So we see all these babies in this picture. I wonder which one is Galileo. That might be a question later. I don't know. Hopefully you can figure that one out. No, it's fine. So let's go ahead and keep reading. I'm going to read the caption up here. Please follow along. It is a little hard to read, so I'm going to zoom in, see if we can get a better look. Until the age of 11, Galileo was taught at home by his father. Then he was sent to the Benedictine monastery of Santa Maria di Vallombrosa, where he studied Latin, Greek, religion, and music. So he was studying all those different things while he was at that school. A monastery is somewhere that someone goes to study religion most of the time. So let's go down. This one's going to be hard to read too, guys. Please follow along the best you can on this. It says, in Galileo's time, homes and cities were often beautiful, but life was difficult and luxuries few. Light came from candles or oil lamps. There was no refrigeration. The streets were open sewers. Disease was common, and thousands died from typhus and from the bubonic plague. So at that time there was not an actual like pipes and things with sewers, so the streets were filled with those things, and so there were a lot of diseases at that time. People would get diseases like typhus and the bubonic plague, which were fatal diseases that would often lead to death. So it says Galileo thrived and he grew. In many ways, he was like any other healthy child, but he was more curious than most, and stars were always on his mind. So it shows all the kids out here playing and playing, and that is where in Italy where Galileo was living at the time. Let's go ahead and read this. I'll zoom in a little more if I can to see if we can read that a little bit better. There we go. Let's go back to 200. So in 1581, he entered the University of Pisa. He was an argumentative student and he questioned the teachings of Aristotle. He left the university to study mathematics and physics on his own. He became a professor of mathematics at the University of Pisa, and he was just 25 years old. So when he was just 25, he was already a professor at a university in Italy. That's pretty impressive. In 1592, he became the professor of mathematics at the University of Padua, and he did experiments proving that Aristotle was wrong. So Aristotle was one of the people in the beginning that believed that Earth was the center of the universe. Remember that system. That was the system that everyone believed in at the time. That's what everyone thought. Earth was the center of the earth. And then Galileo came and he questioned those teachings. So he proved Aristotle wrong, and he discovered that the law of falling objects by showing that two balls of unequal weight fall at the same speed. And I actually made a error, excuse me. It's the law of falling objects, and that's showing that two unequal weights will fall at the same speed. So he was trying to prove Aristotle wrong and these people their theories in science at that time. So these are some dates that he created the laws. So he created the law of the pendulum in 1583, the law of falling objects in 1604, and the law of floating objects in 1611. So he invented and perfected instruments that brought new accuracy to science: a hydrostatic balance, the first practical thermometer, a geometric and military compass, a compound microscope, and the first astronomical telescope. So he invented a lot of different things that are very helpful to people even today. An astronomical telescope is like something used to look out in the sky like a telescope to see the stars and things. He invented that. So he studied mathematics and physics and turned out to be a very bright young man who entertained and amused people with his brilliant experiments and observations. Galileo is our star, the people would say. So again, in the picture here, all these other people, they all look the same, and then you see Galileo is looking up into the sky at the pendulum wearing his shirt with stars on it. So that's telling us that that is Galileo right there. That's another picture of Galileo showing his theory. He dropped two falling objects off of this tower and showed people that they would fall at the same time, even though they weighed different things. So people were amazed at this because they had thought that that would not be true. So let's keep on going. This is going to be a little hard to read. Please follow along the best you can. I even have to turn my head a little bit to read it. So it says, let's see here. Let's see if I can zoom in if that helps. Yes, a report reached my ears that a certain Fleming had constructed a spyglass. Upon hearing the news, I set myself to thinking about the problem. Finally, spawning neither labor nor expense, I succeeded in constructing for myself so excellent an instrument that objects seen by means of it appeared nearly 1,000 times larger and over 30 times closer than when regarded with other natural vision. That is the World Telescope that was created 2 years later in 1611. So Galileo was talking about something that would eventually become the telescope that he was able to invent, and so he could see things in the sky. This is a picture of him talking about his invention and things of that nature. So it says, let me back up a little bit. Then one day, Galileo heard about a new instrument for seeing things far, far away. He figured out how it worked and made one for himself. Then he turned it to the sky. So someone wrote him that note about creating something that could see 30 times better, and so on and so forth. And so that gave him the idea of creating the telescope to be used for astronomical things like seeing the sky, the planets, and those things. So this is a picture of Galileo and others looking through a telescope. The various intricate stuff that you see in this picture. And then, of course, Galileo out here on his balcony looking outside, excuse me, sorry. So then the last thing on the page says, news of the telescope reaches Galileo. And this is the result. You see him reading through not reading, but looking through the telescope and trying to figure out what's going on out in space. So we've read the whole entire book up to page 13. We read pages 1 to 13. I want you to now go back into your lesson and complete the last few questions. You're almost done for the day. You've done a great job. Thank you for following along. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye, guys.